Welcome to a new episode of Next Gen Ninja. I'm your host, Kory Farooquie. On this show, I'll be interviewing those enterprise and entrepreneurial leaders that are defining what the world looks like for the coming generations. My guests on this show are the Next Gen Ninjas. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Tom Edwards. Tom is the Chief Innovation Officer for Epsilon's agency business. Among many things, Tom has recently been awarded 2019's Marketing Technology Trailblazer and Marketing Thought Leader by OnCon Icon Awards and Advertising Age. Tom is a futurist, he's a prolific speaker, and has recently been on a TEDx talk that already has over 500,000 views. So welcome to the show, Tom. It's great to have you.
Kory, thank you for having me. Really look forward to it.
Awesome. No, it's going to be a great talk. So, Tom, let's start by talking about data. Data is the underlying fuel that powers and drives all the different disruptive technologies that we're seeing coming into the market space. Can you talk a little bit about yourself, what it takes to harness that data, and what Epsilon is doing to help your clients leverage the data that they have to create those experiences for their customers?
Absolutely. So I'll start with Epsilon. So Epsilon is all about interaction management and creating one-to-one experiences at scale. So what really attracted me to Epsilon 4 years ago was they had the world's largest transactional data set. And that ability to take and action that on behalf of clients was it was amazing. So I'm a part of the agency business. We're focused on data-driven strategy as well as world-class creative. And I focus on digital, AI, innovation, and creative technology. And so for the last 4 years, I've been really working on supervised machine learning, as well as creating new tools that allow us to drive actionable insights from our data in real time.
Well, that's exactly what is needed. And I think, most people don't regularly hear about Epsilon, but they hear about your clients, and they understand. Well, on this show, we're going to see how how Epsilon is really helping those clients that everybody sees create the experiences for the average customer. So a little bit more about Epsilon. Your new branding tagline is "Humans over Hype." And I think that really speaks to a very important aspect today, which is the fear that people have on where do they fit in? Where does the human fit in versus the AI or the hype? So as the Chief Innovation Officer for Epsilon, tell us a little bit about not only how you see that going forward, but also what are the key skills you look for in your staff that really makes them irreplaceable?
Absolutely. Humans over hype is really about creating connections through data. That's really what it's all about. It's less about talking about it and more about actually executing and actioning that. When it comes to AI, I'm a big believer in intelligence augmentation. That's using AI and basically using AI to basically create new experiences. That's what it's all about for me. And to me, we're going from this time of the Internet of Things to autonomous things, and that's incredibly important. How we actually are able to use data through AI to create experiences, and then from an employee perspective, I really look for people who have the ability to kind of have a point of view, but also be able to truly deconstruct that and just constantly learning. So those are some of the key things that I look for in employees.
One of the most interesting keynotes that I had seen once was what drives human skills, and what are the key things that we as humans bring to the table, and that's passion. It's our ability to think creatively and think outside the box. Something AI doesn't do. It just extends us our abilities. So give me maybe an example of a story of a key staff member or a key idea that you said, there's no way that we can be replaced?
Yeah. To me, it's about using information. We use machine learning quite a bit to derive insights. And there's no way a human being can take and process millions of comments and pull out themes, perceptions, and occasions. It would take weeks to months to do so. So what we really do is we look for how can we use the tools in a way that's going to help enhance our strategy and deliver an experience faster on behalf of our clients. So to me, that's what we look for. We look for what are the unique startups that we can work with? How can we work with unstructured data, structured data, semi-structured data, data of intent, data of culture, data of identity to create those experiences? So that's really what we focus on.
I mean, that's something that we as the consumers, the customers, and then most importantly, the employees of organizations really need to strive for. Mm-hmm. What differentiates us, and how can we not be replaced?
Yeah.
So with that said, this is not just a hype. There are areas that we should be replaced, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Where AI does a job better than us, or automation does a job better than us. So where do you think, or what would you say to that? Give us some areas and some focus areas that you say, you know what, this is the wrong place for a human being, and AI is better, and the machine is better.
We're seeing it a lot in the digital transformation space, specifically in the back office. Any tasks that require a lot of repetition, obviously we're seeing a lot from an RPA, robotic process, automation perspective, and you are an expert in that area for sure. From an industry standpoint, I definitely see transportation potentially being disrupted, as well as service industries. A lot of what I talk about are the 5 levels of autonomy. So that's starting at the very baseline level of chatbots, going into voice assistants, digital humans, physical and motor robotics, and ultimately androids. What we're seeing is digital humans kind of taking the place in some instances. There's a company that we work with called Soul Machines that they're actually providing emotive digital avatars that can take and respond. So from a customer service standpoint, you can see how that could potentially become a ripe area for change.
Sure. I mean, the experience we're looking for at the end of the day is human driven.
That's right.
It's getting the apathy and the empathy mm-hmm. when we talk to a customer service agent. But if we can get the machine to do that, why not? And how do we even tell the difference? With example like Google Duplex.
Of course.
Right. So for our viewers that don't know about that, you are often going to these Google's conferences and Apple's.
Correct.
And so you're really at the front end of what's being out there and what's getting released. And then you can sort of digest that and get your own purview of the future. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that. What's next? What's coming?
So it's really interesting. When we talk about those 5 levels of autonomy, it really comes down to why people are going to adopt AI-based or intelligent systems. It's about ease and convenience across generational cohorts. Anything that can provide ease and convenience in our lives is kind of the key. So you see that in the example of Google Duplex. It's Google Assistant moving to potentially the center of the operating system to then begin to predict some of our needs. In the latest example, Google Assistant's actually able to go through the entire process of running a car on your behalf. So it's this idea of having a virtual proxy. It becomes a preference center for you. And so what that is ultimately going to mean is you're going to see the rise of what's called the proxy web, where my virtual assistant can talk to yours. It can schedule a specific meeting on our behalf. Again, all with the idea of creating ease and convenience.
I want to stop saying it's a talk of science fiction and it's turning into reality, but it's true.
It is.
And it's not the talk of science fiction anymore.
No.
So our assistants talking to each other, and
mm-hmm.
So there are plenty of companies today that aren't moving forward.
Yes.
Where you have executives that are looking at this as hype, or they're not seeing the urgency to adopt, or they're looking at all this disruption happening around them, and they're saying, I'm confused. What do I do? So to those that are struggling with disruption, mm-hmm. what would you say?
To me, I used to talk a lot about how disruption was the new normal, how specific technologies were disrupting industries. Now it's less about disruption and it's more about convergence. It's understanding that it's not about a single tech. It's not about AR and AI. It's about the convergence of these technologies coming together and being accelerated through intelligent systems. It's incredibly important that organizations understand that core piece. When I look at actually filtering what's happening from consumer behavior through to emerging technology, I use 3 filters. I use empower, exponential, and enhanced. Empower is all about how technology enables users to control. Control is a really big behavioral driver right now. The second piece is exponential. It's all about ease and convenience, which we've already touched on. The third is about enhanced. It's about the connection of physical and digital reality and focusing on presence as well as perception and ultimately simulation.
Wow. So a lot to digest, but it's something that you're going to need to digest to stay relevant. What about those enterprise leaders? And so I will say you can be the person that saves your enterprise or the last person that could have. What do you say to those enterprise leaders that aren't moving forward?
I would say it's really important to understand that innovation is about removing barriers while building on the familiar. And when I think about it, a lot of it actually, I'm also an adjunct faculty member at SMU. And so I teach marketing related courses. Marketing is built on the foundation of the 4 Ps: product, price, place, promotion. What people need to understand with the arrival of intelligent systems and autonomous systems, it's about the new 4 Ps. It's about plan, it's about predictive, it's about proxy, and it's about pervasive. Plan is all about data, having an approach, because as we know, data is oil for AI. Predictive is understanding the systems that are going to deliver ease and convenience. Proxy is designing for exactly what we discussed earlier, virtual assistants that become our preference centers. And pervasive is ultimately about multimodal design and interfaces, like designing beyond mobile and desktop.
That brings us to a great segue into some of the questions that I want to ask you.
Sure.
So all of those things that you mentioned right now are key to delivering that experience to your customer.
That's right.
The predictive, the KYC or the know your customer.
Yeah.
And your knowledge around marketing and the coupling of marketing and technology is key to delivering that experience.
Correct.
So how do you, as an enterprise leader today, take that and move away from a product-driven go-to-market strategy or a services-driven go-to-market strategy and really move towards an experience as a product or an experience as a service marketing strategy in the context of your business? And it can be a restaurant, it can be a theater, or it can be an insurance company or anything. It's all about the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, it's a combination of all the things we've talked about so far. It's having a roadmap for how you're going to introduce AI-centric systems and strategies into your organization. What are the actual business objectives you're trying to accomplish there? How do you then begin applying the new 4 Ps that we discussed? Having a plan for data, understanding proxies, moving beyond desktop and mobile to create experiences. All of these things combined are what you have to take into consideration. And then ultimately, how does it align with business objectives? A lot of my day job is really, how do I take an action structured data against a specific business objective to drive an insight? That's a foundational piece. I recently did a keynote talking to about 100 different people. I asked the question about the 5 levels of autonomy. Who's starting at just the very first point? Because you've got by 2023, you're going to have 8 billion people using virtual assistants. So you have to have a strategy for discovery across that. So maybe 2 or 3 people raise their hand. So it just starts with a foundational understanding that A, it's not just about marketing to individuals anymore, but also through to algorithms. And B, how are you discoverable across interfaces? And that's just foundational.
And I would even say, kind of just doing a deep soul searching for your company's product or service and understanding what is that experience that the customers get? How can I package it? Right? So let's switch gears. We've got about 10 minutes left. So let's switch gears a little and talk about the coming AI native generation.
Of course.
Your kids and my kids. And we've got plenty of stories, but we're running out of time.
Yep.
How does this coming generation differ? What do you see the difference between this generation versus all the previous generations that have kind of grown up and become customers, consumers, and employees versus the coming generation of AI native individuals that'll become the future customers, employees, and consumers?
A stat that recently blew my mind is that by next year, 40% of consumers are going to come from Gen Z. Gen Z is 1996 to 2010. They're the first mobile-first generation. They learned to swipe before they learned to speak. I have three. I've got a 17, a 14, and 11-year-old, and I see it in my home every day.
Yeah.
Their expectation for on-demand content, their expectation for actually gaming. My oldest son wants to be a professional esports athlete, and we had a really fun conversation with my wife on that one. That was a lot of fun. He's like, it's athletics of the mind. But you think about
That's true.
It is. You think about 2.5 hours a day with on-demand content, an hour and a half a day gaming, and kind of the convergence of the two. Right now, virtual Jordans are the social currency for Gen Z.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. Versus back in the day in the 80s, it was actual Jordans, you know, for kids. So I see that expectation of the camera as a platform, like the lens is life now for Gen Z. And it's also a bridge to intelligence as you begin connecting AI into the camera. And ultimately, it's about Gen Z is about it's about creation versus content. 69% of them are actually have their own YouTube channel. So it's about enabling their creativity versus selling to them is probably the biggest difference I see.
It is a generation that, I mean, I look at my own kids and I wonder, like, how do I stay relevant? How do I, I kind of look back in when we were kids and we looked at our dad and said, dad doesn't know how to work a remote control.
Yeah.
And today we're looking at these kids, they got their YouTube channels and you're saying, okay, I am so behind, right?
Oh, yeah.
But as a company, you've got to understand your new audience coming forward. So let's have some quick discussion on your purview of the future. What does that world look like in the next 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 15 years? So different from the current world we live in today.
Absolutely. What we're going to see, it's going to be less about us inputting into technology and more about technology adapting to us. As intelligent systems become more pervasive and delivering ease and convenience, you're going to see the virtual assistant move to the center of the operating system. It's going to be less about working with native applications and more about everything becoming a middle tier service. It's going to be about preference centers. It's ultimately going to be about actual real world simulation. So that's going to be a key thing, this idea of synthetic reality. So what I see is by 2028, we're going to see multimodal interfaces at scale. That's voice, that's vision, and that's touch. And by 2038, we're going to see photorealism at scale. That's where we'll have essentially real life simulation as a part of our everyday life.
Whew. So, you're going to a concert and you're not really going to the concert.
That's right.
And you're watching Michael Jackson perform. He's long gone. But it's a real life person that looks like, I mean, it's a digitized AI driven Michael Jackson, right?
Yes.
And they've already done this, where, an existing artist doesn't have to perform in multiple cities. They can just perform one and you can still go to the venue and get the experience, but you're watching an AI driven hologram or whatever it is, right? So the future world is not really that far.
No.
5 years, 10 years, that's not far. So this is not the talk of sci-fi. This is not something that you can push down the road. This is something you really got to act on. So what would you say, just to kind of wrap up, the urgency for today's enterprise leaders to do this, and how do they become next generation ninjas like you?
Absolutely. First of all, it's understanding that we're at an adapt or die inflection point. Like you have to have a strategy around data, around how you integrate AI into your organization, and ultimately create experiences that both meet consumers as well as AI-based algorithms. That's really key. The next part is following individuals like yourself and me and content. Education is the key to becoming a next-gen ninja. So following you on LinkedIn, my content's available at blackfin360.com as well as Twitter, YouTube, Instagram.
Say that one more time so
Sure.
our viewers can go to there.
Absolutely. It's blackfin360.com. That's where I post a lot of my industry commentary, blogs, speaker recaps, talk a lot about innovation to reality. And yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Tom, it's been a great conversation. Unfortunately, we are now running out of time, and I hope to have you on the show again.
Love to be back.
Thank you so much for joining us for this amazing discussion.
Thank you, Kory. Thank you for having me.
Great. So, all right, folks. Well, you heard it here, and an amazing discussion with Tom Edwards, again, Chief Innovation Officer for Epsilon, a public speaker, a marketing technology guru, been awarded for a TEDx speaker. Go watch his talks, read up on his blogs, and again, join us next week where we'll have more amazing guests just like Tom to discuss how you can become a next generation ninja and stay future focused.